Sir, as you have seen, I'll remind you you're still running the notes I gave to you yesterday. You have been, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing? Good. Mr. Sykes, this is your witness. You may proceed with that.
Thank you, Judge. Officer Chandler, you testified that you had known the defendant for several years, correct?
Yes.
Fair to say you're pretty good friends with him.
I did not have an off-duty relationship with him.
Okay. So you're not exactly happy to be down here, though, are you?
I'm never happy to be at court.
You remember that we admitted your dash cam into evidence, and I'm going to take that to about the 8-minute mark. Your Honor, if you would mind doing the lights, because I want to ask you to pay attention to a voice here and tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury whether you can recognize this voice.
To what?
The 8:30.
Slowly walk back to the sound of my voice. Walk back to the sound of my voice. Walk back to the sound of my voice. You can't figure those fucking lights. Keep walking. Keep on. Keep walking. Keep walking. Keep walking. Come on. You keep your hands up. Face away from me. Okay, walk to your left. Walk to your left. Keep walking. Keep walking. Keep walking. Keep walking. Keep on. You're almost here. Keep walking. Keep walking. All the directions. Keep walking.
Yeah, stop it. Did you hear that follow directions?
Yes.
Who was that?
That was Oliver.
The defendant.
Yes, the defendant.
That just shot at that car.
Yes.
Okay. Let him know. And you testified earlier that ultimately you went up, you, Pedro Gonzalez, and the defendant went up to the car to see who was in the front right passenger seat and if the reports that the little brother was dead up there were correct. You remember that?
Yes.
All right, that's what we're going to show the jury now.
Steer them in the car. Come on. Moving forward. Hands up! Hands up! Hands up! Say that. Let's give it their side. We're going to fight for better view. Better view. Better view. Yeah, visual. Right here. Good. You there? 87. 87. After about here, we got one victim in the front seat.
And for just a second, Judge, if you turn the lights on, they're going to come back off in a second. Yesterday, several exhibits were admitted. You had indicated that you had gone up to the subject vehicle, and although you didn't take the photographs yourself, you could recognize these photographs as being fair and accurate representations of what you saw up at the 2004 Chevrolet Impala. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And we're going to show the ladies and gentlemen, jury and judge, now is a good time. State's Exhibit 27. Full lights, Judge. What are we looking at there, Officer Chandler?
That would be the front of the vehicle, the windshield.
Okay. You remember it? You recognize it?
Yes.
What number was that, sir?
Excuse me, sir?
What number was that?
27. And now I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 28. What is that, please?
That's the front passenger door damage on the window.
And you saw that with your own eyes?
Yes.
And by then you learned that Jordan was dead?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 29, Your Honor. The jury has previously seen body cams showing the 2004 Chevrolet Impala backing up with a young man in the front right passenger seat in a blue sweatshirt. Is that Jordan Edwards? It's pictured there in State's Exhibit 29, Mr. Chandler, Officer Chandler.
Yes, it is.
So I'm told.
Yes.
Bullet holes all around the car. State's Exhibit 30, Your Honor. What do we see here?
That would be Jordan Edwards in the front seat with blood on his shorts.
Do you see that red knee-high drink there that was left?
Yes, appears to be a fancy drink.
Would that be consistent if a witness had said he thought that Jordan had just spilled a red drink all over himself and that it wasn't blood? Would that be consistent with that kind of drink?
It's possible.
State's Exhibit 31, Judge. What do we see here?
That's more of a close-up image from the previous photograph of a victim with blood on his shorts.
Do you see that? What's on his left wrist there, sir? Oh, actually his leg. You see what that is?
Appears to be something placed there by medical personnel.
Those, from your training and experience, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what those red spots are on his shorts?
That would be blood.
Any family members you might want to lay down? One of the ladies and gentlemen of the jury. State's Exhibit 34.
Hang on just a second, Mr. Booth. Go ahead.
Officer Chandler, do you see that there in the middle?
Yes.
What does that appear to be?
Red soda.
State's Exhibit 35, Judge. What does that appear to be, Officer Chandler?
That would be the victim in the front seat.
Did you see any guns in that car?
No, I did not. I did not search the vehicle.
Did you see your naked eye any guns?
No, I did not see any weapons in plain view.
Contraband of any kind?
No.
Anything evil or sinister or bad?
No.
State's Exhibit 36, Judge. What is that, Officer Chandler?
That would be the rear of the vehicle, rear seat, rear floorboard.
No blood back there.
Not that I can see. Maybe some behind the console from what I'm looking at.
You see that there? Does it look like a crayon?
It appears to be a crown.
A crayon.
Yes.
State's Exhibit 37, Your Honor. What's in State's Exhibit 37?
That appears to be a view from the left rear door.
Facing towards Jordan in the front seat.
Yes.
And you can see what appears to be broken glass in the front. You see that?
Yes.
State's 39, Judge. What do we have here?
Appears to be a view, photograph from the driver's side, front of the vehicle, facing Jordan Edwards.
Fanta bottle?
I'm sorry?
Fanta bottle?
Yes.
What are those orange gloves?
Medical gloves, worn by personnel.
Trying to help Jordan?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 40, Your Honor. And what do we have here, Officer Chandler?
Appears to be a photograph taken from outside the driver's window, facing towards Jordan Edwards.
So he's still in the car?
Yes.
Do you remember ultimately having, we have a license, a conversation with the defendant in which you actually took his MC5 carbine rifle from him?
Yes.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how that happened.
Asked who fired the shot. The defendant stated he did. Then he indicated that his rifle was used as obtained that and secured it in his patrol vehicle.
Why would you do that?
Just to separate him from the evidence.
Why would you want to do that?
It's just standard procedure to preserve the evidence.
Okay. And yesterday you testified that if someone fires a rifle, they potentially could get gunpowder residue on their hands. You remember that?
Yes.
You remember telling the ladies and gentlemen of the jury that in your training and experience, that if you have that gunpowder residue on your hands and then you take the pulse of someone else, it can be transferred?
Yes.
And if the defendant had stayed up there at the intersection of Barron and Shepherd, there would have been no possibility of any gunpowder transfer. Is that right?
I would assume.
That's what you're on.
Cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Chambly, is it safe to say, based on looking at your video, that felony traffic stops are an inherently stressful situation for all parties involved?
Yes, it is.
And in your professional opinion, is that all felony stops that you and other law enforcement officials have to make as part of their duties?
Yes.
Why?
Just to keep the occupants safe, officers safe, and to determine if to investigate a potential crime.
Where were you at when the initial call for service came in for shots fired?
I was at the police department.
And I believe from yesterday you talked about you were in a patrol car, is that correct?
Yes.
Was it a Tahoe or a regular sedan?
It was a Ford Explorer.
Did your Ford Explorer have the capability of automatically activating the in-car video system if you ran code 3?
Yes.
And what is code 3 for the jury?
It's when you respond to a call with your lights and siren activated.
If best you recall from the time you heard on your radio, and I assume you had your lapel
Yes.
speaker, shots fired from dispatch, which Balch Springs PD is not that big. It's probably down the hall in the building, but
Yes.
you're over in patrol listening to it. From the time you heard the shots fired call from Officer Oliver, how fast were you on Elam and then on Shepherd?
I would say within a minute.
Did you have your lights on?
Yes.
Did you have your siren on?
Yes.
Has anybody asked you to look, or did you look to see if you caught any SUVs of a light color speeding northbound at a high rate of speed away from the scene during that time?
No.
At some point in time, did a supervisory rank higher than a patrol officer arrive on the scene, to your knowledge, at the first location, if we call that Barron Drive?
I'm not sure. I can't testify to that. I wasn't there.
What's the makeup on 29 April for the shift in 2017? Is it 10 patrol officers and a sergeant and a lieutenant? What do y'all go out with on an average night like that?
Normally we have 4 beat officers and a sergeant. At times we run 3 beat officers and a sergeant.
And was the photographer of the photos we just looked at, as disturbing as they are, that was Sergeant Snow, is that correct?
Yeah, I don't recall who actually took photographs.
You're not saying Officer Oliver took the photographs?
No.
If a sergeant at Balch Springs gives a patrol officer an order to go do something, is it expected that the patrol officer is going to carry that out?
Yes.
Would it surprise you then that Sergeant Snow ordered Officer Oliver to go assist you when you called for assistance?
No, that would not surprise me.
So, looking back at this, that's how Officer Oliver didn't get quarantined till you did, got to the scene.
Correct.
Rank at the original scene didn't stop him, and Rank sent him to you.
Yes.
And then there was the extrication of the young men from the vehicle.
Yes.
And I have a child that still has a crayon age. These individuals, in your opinion, weren't of the age that they were using crayons on a regular basis. Would you agree with that?
I agree.
And troubled as they may be for what just took place, you had to follow your general orders and your procedure for how the extrication and assistance would be done for those individuals. Is that correct?
Yes.
The state showed you your body worn and your in-car video, and you talked yesterday about Jordan's brother Vidal and you in a spiritual moment where you two were praying. Do you recall that?
Yes, he asked me to join him in prayer.
Do you recall other officers tending to Vidal's needs when you were reviewing your entire in-car video system?
No, I don't recall it.
Your in-car video system that's been admitted for all purposes before the jury would have a body-worn microphone, much like the media's wireless mics that we see here in the courtroom, yes?
Yes.
It doesn't have a cord on there for officer safety.
Correct, it's wireless.
And then it has a fixed mount camera and a fixed microphone in your Ford vehicle, yes?
Yes.
So if you're away from the vehicle, it still has the capabilities of recording information or activities in the backseat of your car?
Yes, it does.
And it's my understanding that the prayer that you had with Vidal and the activities with Vidal, he was in the back of your car while you were waiting for supervisors to come and give you guidance on what to do next based on your general orders. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe I was actually seated in my driver's seat at that time.
Is there a gentleman by the name of, last name of Baldwin that's an officer with Balch Springs?
Yes,
And did he have an occasion, if you know, to come out and assist you that night?
he did.
As part of the assist, did you ask Officer Baldwin at certain points after you had placed Vidal in your car to check Vidal's handcuffs and try to loosen them up till you figured out what was going on?
I don't recall that. I believe I did.
Do you recall anybody having a conversation with Vidal about 36 minutes and 20 seconds into your turning on of your in-car video where Vidal tells you the sequence and how things took place and how he didn't put it in park and how it took off?
Yes,
Can you recall listening to that part?
yes.
Thank you. Pass the witness.
Just briefly, when you took the firearm, the MC5 carbine rifle from the defendant, was he angry with you about that?
No, not that I was aware of.
Do you recall overhearing him say to Officer Pedro Gonzalez that, and excuse my French, ladies and gentlemen, that you were being a dick?
Yes, I do recall that in one of the interviews I had with you.
Right. Pertaining to your taking the firearm away.
Yes.
That's what it's just.
Officer Chamberlain, you and I chatted briefly back in the back. I think from looking at all the evidence in this case, you're probably the only one that didn't get to look at any cameras prior to giving your statements to the sheriff or to your department. You recall those conversations with people?
Yes.
And when you said earlier that your personal relationship, I think you probably got the best quote of all, that you do your job and then you go home. You don't have a personal relationship with anybody, Roy or anybody else at the department. Is that safe to say?
Some persons I do hang out off duty with.
But as far as this is concerned, the comments earlier on direct, you don't have any animosity toward Roy for any of this, do you?
No, absolutely not.
And you were following your general orders for quarantine that Sergeant Snow missed when you took the rifle from Roy and put it in his vehicle and kept him away. Is that correct?
Yes.
In police jargon, for lack of a better term, is there a phrase of a handler after a critical incident such as this?
Regarding the evidence,
Regarding evidence or individuals that may be in uniform or law enforcement, do you assign an officer, such as Officer Gonzalez, to be a handler of any officers that may be quarantined or in a situation?
yes, there is an officer assigned.
And who did you, because I think you were the only one there, you made some decisions early on, secure his weapons or his long gun, put it in his car, keep him isolated, and ask Officer Gonzalez to stay with him until rank arrived. Is that correct?
I believe that order came from Sergeant Snow.
At some point in time, Snow made the scene then as well?
Yes.
And as part of your duties, if you're the first on the scene at the location, you're what's known, at least on my side of the Trinity River, as the sheet officer. Does that pertain over here as well? That you're the person writing the crime scene log?
I did handle the crime scene log at some point.
Did
Did you say did or no?
I did.
it surprise you that your name is the one at the top of the crime scene log is activating it?
I don't recall.
And whether it's a crime scene or an incident or a containment area, what is the purpose of having a log sheet like that?
Document who comes and goes out of the scene and
So-
the purpose.
When members of the jury get to see your video in its entirety and see you going and stringing up yellow, what they call crime scene tape, does the log then pertain to who enters the yellow tape?
I would assume so.
And is the log set up to note both who arrives and who leaves and what times they arrive and leave,
Yes.
as well as what departments or agencies they may work for?
Yes.
Thank you, Officer Chandler. Pass the witness.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
May the witness be found excused?
Stay, yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. Sir, you may stand down. Your excuse may be served. Please don't discuss your testimony with anybody. Citizen.
He is excused, Judge?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. I'll call Officer Jeff Baldwin.
Officer, stretch your legs if you need to, or between witnesses.
Same thing, yeah.
Sir, if you would please come to the court. Before you have a seat on the witness stand, if you could please raise your hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give will be true? Yes, sir. Please have a seat. Responding to questions from Mr. Snipes, you can have either Mr. Gill or Mr. Brissett to his left. You may proceed when ready.
Thanks, sir. Please state your name, spell both your names for the record.
Jeffrey Baldwin, Jefferey, Baldwin.
How are you currently employed, sir?
A patrol officer with the city of Baltimore,
And how long have you had that job?
11 years.
What are your duties there?
Patrol the third shift, day shift.
Do officers from time to time work extra jobs in addition to their law enforcement jobs to make extra money, try to make ends meet?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I direct your attention to the night of April 29th, Saturday, 2017. And I want to ask you if you were working an extra job that night.
Yes, sir.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about that.
I was working security for a quinceañera.
For what?
A quinceañera?
Okay. Can you spell that for Ms. Wood, please, if you know how to?
No, sir.
Okay, sorry, Ms. Wood. And while you were there, did you hear reports about shots fired in the area of Barron Drive and Shepherd Lane?
Yes, sir.
And were you with Pete Gonzalez that night?
Yes, sir.
And did the two of you guys decide that you need to go help your friends?
Yes, sir.
And tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how that conversation went down, not for the truth of the matter asserted, but just to show your decision making and how you decided to go over there.
That night, I believe they had minimal manning. There was 4 officers working. Me and our Officer Gonzalez were working the off-duty job. We heard over the radio that there were shots fired, and there wasn't any immediate officers that could go and assist right away. So we decided to go and assist.
Your
Thank you.
Your testimony here today is based on what you did that night, not any conversations with any of your management over at Bald Springs Police Department. Can we repeat that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What you're testifying to this jury about, is it based on what you saw that night?
Yes, sir.
Not based on any conversations that you might have with Lieutenant Merritt or Lieutenant Hurley or Chief Hager?
Yes, sir.
So about what time did you get down to what's been commonly referred to as the, quote, second crime scene over at Bishop? Do you remember?
It was around 11:30.
And were you and Pedro Gonzalez riding together or separately?
In separate vehicles.
Patrol cars?
Yes, sir.
And did you have a body cam that night?
Yes, sir.
Have you reviewed that with me?
Not in its entirety, no, sir.
Parts of it?
Parts of it, yes, sir.
Enough to know it's your body cam?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you initial off on that?
Yes, sir.
So it's yours?
Yes, sir.
You remember doing that with me?
Yes, sir.
William, what's been marked State's Exhibit 25. Are those your initials on the back of it?
Yes, sir.
Is that your body cam that you reviewed?
Yes, sir.
Does it fairly and accurately portray the events that you saw on the night of April 29, 2017?
Yes, sir.
We offer State's 25.
May I take most of what Ariel?
Sure.
Officer, briefly, how far did you watch your body worn? How many minutes on that did you watch?
I've seen it one time in its entirety.
Okay. So how long is that?
I don't remember, sir.
A minute ago you said you hadn't seen it in its entirety. Now you have. How many times have you watched that disc?
I didn't see its entirety with the prosecutor, sir.
You did?
I did not see its entirety with the prosecutor.
Okay. So let's go through, let me do a level set. How many minutes do you think of it you watched?
Until I could affirm that was my video.
60 seconds?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what else is on it past that?
Yes, sir.
How do you know that?
I was able to watch it on my own, was provided by the department.
And it matched up?
Yes, sir.
Is it the same disc?
Yes, sir.
So that you brought the disc to Judge Snipes or from your department, or did Judge Snipes give you that disc separately?
That was a disc separately.
Judge, I think we have everything, but just in abundance of caution, we would object to anything past what he's watched.
Although they did over your objection. Is there anything else on there? So jump here. You may, 25 is admitted for all purposes, you may close.
Thank you, Judge. Give me dim lights, Judge. We're starting this body cam at the beginning, Officer Baldwin, okay?
Yes, sir.
To the side. Drop down on your knees. Yes, sir. Hands on your back. Yes, sir. I have my little brother dead in the car stop, please. Left rear passenger, step out, open the door from the outside. He's dead. He's dead in there. Step out of the vehicle slowly, hands up, and face in front of you. Watch your left, hands on your head. Keep walking to your left. Yeah, any weapons on you? No, sir. I didn't have my head. Face the front, face the front. Keep walking behind you. Walk back to the center of my voice. Keep walking. Keep walking. Can you tie my dad a seat? Do you have weapons on you? No, not at all. Hey, put the phone down, dude. Have a seat. Don't grab your hands. All right, go ahead.
Rear passenger, come out with your hands up. Walk back. Walk back.
Stand right behind me.
Walk back. Keep walking.
Stop right there. To your knees. Hey, stop, keep walking.
Who else is in there?
So it's gonna stop.
Anyone
All right,
else?
stand up.
Anyone else?
No, wait, good Lord.
Let me know when you're ready to approach.
Sir, why is y'all shooting?
money? Yeah, yes, he's gone. My wallet. You have ID in there? No, sir. Nothing? No, sir. Not your school ID? No, sir. That's what your name on? No. Why you carry the wallet? I got the right there that topped off the second one. Okay. Hold on. All right, have a seat. Let me see. Turn face this way. You put your leg in? Yeah. You got to turn. Where you at? What's hurting? My hand. Okay. You got to kick your feet all the way that way. No, your feet. Kick that way. You turn so your back's totally facing me. Front seat up here. Yep. Jake, hold still. I'm gonna take that off. Turn your hand all the way out like that. There we go. All right. Just relax, all right? Everybody's got one in their car. Just look. Okay, so what are you looking to do?
Robert kept saying, so, I didn't see him breathing in there. Well, I'm gonna, stay along right now, so, just gonna visit her, so. Yeah, I passed the car up earlier, trying to find a Cadillac, they're driving slow, so I came back and then they came back this way.
Is that home? Is that home? That just pulled up? Oh, okay, sorry. There you go.
Yeah, I didn't hear, I just heard shots fired, I didn't know if it was officer involved or not.
On the radio, there was the other shots.
Just gonna stay with all.
Jim?
Vice Judge. Did you hear the defendant Oliver talking to Officer Pedro Gonzalez there right at the end? Do you need to hear it again?
I barely heard him.
Pay attention this time.
Jim?
Did you get it then? Pay attention.
Jim?
Did you get it then?
No, sir.
Could it be Chambly's making me feel like a dick?
I can't hear it, sir.
All right. Now, that's your body cam, right?
Yes, sir.
And you're the one putting handcuffs on these kids, right?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember asking them if they had any guns?
Yes, sir.
And Vidal Allen says, all I got's an inhaler. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
You know what an inhaler is?
Yes, sir.
What?
For asthma or breathing problem.
A far cry from a gun, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you go over to Kevon Edwards, you ask him if he's got a gun on him. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
And then said he had some gum, chewing gum. Right?
Yes, sir.
You heard that?
Yes, sir.
That's witness judgment.
Cross-examination?
Officer Baldwin, in your other life, you're a preacher, are you not?
Yes, sir.
Where's your church?
It's inside Cerro.
How long have you been ordained?
I'm just licensed, sir.
You're just licensed. How long have you been licensed?
Since 2005.
Where's your church? I'm sorry.
In Terrell, it's actually the ministry.
Safe to say that a felony traffic stop at any time is stressful?
Yes, sir.
Involving young men such as this in this circumstance, it's even more stressful?
Yes, sir.
For the jury's benefit that have never seen a handcuff procedure, was that almost textbook the way that you and your fellow officers worked that night to bring people out of the car during a felony stop?
Yes, sir.
What is the device that you're using on the cuffs after you put the cuffs on the person?
That's a handcuff key to double lock them so they don't tighten up.
What do you mean by that?
Handcuffs have a secondary lock on it so they can't tighten down once they're placed on.
Is that so that you do your best not to pinch somebody's arms and hurt the circulation?
Yes, sir.
And you did that with everybody during that very stressful time. Is that safe to say?
Yes, sir.
And did you go back at different points and loosen them up even more for the young men as they were sitting in the cars so you could figure out what was going on?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall having a conversation with the driver, Vidal Allen, at some point later on in that evening?
No, sir.
How many individuals did you loosen the cuffs up with?
I only remember one, sir.
And who do you remember that being, if you know?
I don't remember. No, sir.
Do you know if the individual had shoes on or no shoes on?
I don't even remember that, sir.
At some point, did Sergeant Snow or anybody else have you or cause you to be redirected back over to Barron Drive?
Right after this incident, sir.
All right, tell me about that.
I was moved to, actually I was sent to Shepherd first, Barron and Shepherd, and there was already an officer there.
And what was the purpose of that?
I still don't know at this time. I think to set a perimeter for that scene.
What do you mean by set up perimeter?
To protect the crime scene.
At that point, had any of the original active shooters, to your knowledge, been apprehended?
Still at that point, I was still processing what actually happened. I don't.
Is it possible that a perimeter had to be set to protect the officers that were working the scene?
It's possible.
Thank you, Your Honor. Pass the witness.
Nothing further, Judge.
May this witness be finally excused?
From the state, yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sir, you may stand down. You're excused for further service. Please don't discuss your testimony with anybody else. Mr. Sykes?
Call Officer Pedro Gonzalez. State safety up here if I can.
Sir, if you would please come to the front of the courtroom. Before you have a seat on the witness stand, if you turn, face me and raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
Yes, sir.
Please have a seat. You respond to questions from Mr. Snipes. That's also Mr. Brissett or Mr. Guilty. You may proceed with that.
Thank you, Judge. Please state your full name for the record, spell your first and last name.
Pedro Gonzalez, P-E-D-R-O, Gonzalez, G-O-N-Z-A-L-E-Z.
And how are you currently employed, sir?
I'm a police officer in Bald Springs,
How long have you had that job?
approximately 5 years.
And what are your duties, sir?
Currently, I'm the public information officer and school resource officer at Bald Springs.
On April the 29th, 2017, what were your duties?
I I was working an extra job with Officer Baldwin.
Okay. What were your regular police duties at that time? Same as now? Or?
Yes, sir.
And what was that extra job?
We were working at an event center, and it's equivalent to a Sweet 16 called a quinceañera.
Quinceañera.
Yes, sir.
Now, Officer Baldwin couldn't do this, but maybe you can. Can you spell that?
Sure. It's Quinceañera.
Thank you. There come a time around, let's say 11:30, somewhere like that, Saturday night, April 29th, when you and Officer Baldwin got notified about shots fired.
Yes, sir.
Explain to the ladies and gentlemen what you heard and what you did.
While we were sitting in our patrol vehicle at the salon, we heard over the radio shots fired. We kind of looked at each other and said, this is something that's serious and we needed to respond. So we left our extra job to help out.
Okay. By the way, the testimony that you're giving here today, is that based on what you saw the night of April 29th and the early morning hours of April 30th?
That's correct.
Not based on any conversations that you had with your management, Chief Haber, Lieutenant Barrett, Lieutenant Herb, is that right?
Correct.
And you have viewed these body cams and dash cams with me?
Yes, sir.
Multiple times?
Yes, sir.
And you yourself are seen in Officer Jeremy Chambley's dash cam. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
So where did you go once you found out that there were shots fired?
I actually responded to Bishop, and I parked behind the vehicle, and I positioned myself on the passenger side, which is the right side of the officers.
When you say the vehicle, what are you referring to?
The other patrol vehicle that was at the original traffic stop.
And Bishop is in East-West Road.
Yes, sir.
It runs perpendicular to Shepherd Lane.
Yes, sir.
And it's parallel to Barron Drive.
Correct.
And all those roads have kind of silly British nobleman names like Squire and Duchess and Duke, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So what did you do when you first got there?
When I first got there, I positioned myself on the passenger side of the patrol vehicle, and they were already in the process of a felony traffic stop.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what a felony traffic stop is. They've heard it, but tell them again.
Felony traffic stop is a high-risk traffic stop when most times it's a felony, which is referred as a felony traffic stop, or a high risk. Sometimes there's multiple people inside the vehicle that committed crimes against persons or a serious crime.
But y'all didn't know what you had that night.
Correct.
And so in a so-called felony traffic stop, let's say you're an officer out there by yourself, as Chandler was. Are you allowed to, or should you go up to a car with 4 teenage kids in it and ask them about what's going on and pull them out of the car by yourself?
No, sir.
Why not?
Because it's a high-risk traffic stop. We don't know what's inside the vehicle, especially with previously hearing shots fired. We didn't know what was inside the vehicle.
Okay. So you get down there, and initially, Officer Chambley had gotten the driver, Vidal Allen, and Maxwell Everett sit behind him out of the car. Is that what you observed?
Yes, sir.
And then did you and Jeff Baldwin together get the kids that were in the back seat on the right side, that being Maximus Everett, then Kevon Edwards in the middle, did you get them out of the car?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm going to show you this here in a minute, but you used some somewhat gruff, loud language at some point, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's with regard to what the person getting out of the car claimed was his cell phone.
That's correct, sir.
So why, if it was, as he claimed, a cell phone, why would you be using gruff language with that kid?
After repeatedly telling him to leave the phone and don't pick it up, I used language to show how serious I was. When I did use that language, he didn't pick up the phone, and that's when he obeyed all the commands that we gave.
Okay. And is that for safety purposes?
Yes, sir.
For both you and the kid?
Yes, sir.
And then did you back those kids up?
Yes, sir.
And we'll get to this here in a minute. You didn't know what had gone on, correct?
Correct.
But did you ultimately find out that the defendant had fired shots up into that car, that Chevrolet Impala, up at the intersection of Barron and Shepherd?
Yes, sir.
And you had a very brief conversation with the defendant about that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. And this is State's Exhibit 18. We'd like to publish.
Keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. To the left. And slowly walk back to the sound of my voice. Walk back to the sound of my voice. Walk back to the sound of my voice. Can't see what there's fucking lots. Keep walking. Keep on. Keep walking. Keep walking. Keep walking. Come on. You keep your hands up, face away from me. Okay, walk to your left. Walk to your left. Keep walking. Keep walking. Keep walking. Keep walking. Keep on. You're almost here. Keep walking. Keep walking. Roll the direction. Keep walking. Now down here. On your knees. Swear ball. I have my little brother David in the car stop, please. Left rear passenger, step out and open the door from the outside. Stand. He's standing there. Step out of the vehicle slowly, hands up, and face the front of you. Walk to your left, hands behind your head. Keep walking to your left. Keep walking, face the front, face the front. Keep walking behind you. Walk back to the sound of my voice. Keep walking, keep walking, keep walking, keep on, keep on. I'll take when to stop, keep walking. Come on. Let's see. Yeah. Your knees. Taylor, go ahead. It's on your side. I'll come over there. Yeah, go ahead.
Rear passenger, open your door and come out. Yes, you. Hands up.
Hands up.
Don't give a shit. Drop the fucking phone down. Hands up. Turn around. Walk backward. Keep walking. Keep walking backwards.
Keep walking. Come on. Keep walking. Drop your knees. Grab your knee.
Look it up when you're ready for the next one.
All right, go ahead.
Rear passenger, come out with your hands up. Walk back. Walk back. Keep walking. Walk back. Keep walking.
Stop right there. To your knees. Hey, sir, people want to leave me on hand. Mind your back.
Who else is in there?
So had a good job making front seat passenger.
Anyone else in there? Anyone else?
Don't let it go.
Let me know when you're ready to approach. Let me know when you're ready to approach.
Here, them in the car. All right, come on.
Moving forward. Hands up! Hands up! Hands up!
Say he's dead.
What did you do on that side?
this dash cam here, but in Officer Baldwin's body cam, we saw you approaching the defendant and saying something along the lines of, "What's up?" You remember that?
Yes, sir.
What was that about? Tell them.
At that point, I still didn't know what was going on. All I heard was shots fired. So I approached the defendant and asked him, what's going on? What's up?
Okay. And did he respond to you?
He did. The defendant responded with something to the effect of that Shanley's acting.
Okay, they've heard it. What did he say?
Shanley's acting like a dick. And so at that point, I still didn't know what was going on.
Okay. Did you hear on that dash cam just now, which is for the record, Officer Chandler's dash cam, did you hear 61 GSW to the head?
I did hear it on the video, yes.
61 would be who?
I don't recall.
Well, assuming it's Chandler's.
Oh, yeah, he's calling out his own radio. Yeah, he's notifying dispatch that he is 61. Correct.
GSW is what?
Gunshot wound.
Okay. And did you hear on there who fired the shot?
Yes, sir, I did.
And the response was me?
Yes, sir.
Would that be the defendant?
Yes, sir.
You doubt your mind about that?
No doubt.
Did you suggest pretty strongly to the defendant that he should check for vital signs of Jordan?
Yes, sir.
And did you in fact see just now on that dash cam him do exactly that?
Yes, sir.
And you know about gunpowder residue transfer in your training experience, do you not?
Yes, sir.
And you know that if an officer has fired a bunch of shots just a couple of minutes before at the intersection of Barron and Shepherd, that gunpowder residue could be transferred if the defendant reached in and took the pulse of Jordan.
Yes, sir.
And you know that from your training experience.
Yes, sir.
Pass witness, sir.
Cross-examination?
Officer Gonzalez, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
How long did it take you to get from your off-duty job to Bishop?
A couple of minutes, sir.
Were you running code?
Yes, sir.
And what code were you running?
Code 3.
Did you get permission from dispatch to do that on your way over?
I remember stating that on the radio that I was running code 3.
Is there a general order in Balch Springs to ask for permission to run code like that?
Not that I know, sir.
On State's Exhibit 18, what we just saw on the monitors, would you agree with me that there's a patrol vehicle from Balch Springs at the front and at the rear of that 2004 Impala?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree with me that both of those patrol vehicles have a light bar on top of them?
Yes, sir.
Does a light bar have takedown lights and the red and blue strobes?
Yes, sir.
What are takedown lights?
Takedown lights are bright white lights. It could emit one bulb or multiple bulbs on the light bar. And what they're used for is takedowns.
High-risk felony traffic stops?
Yes, sir.
Any traffic stop at night so everybody can be safe on the side of the road?
Yes, sir.
In States 18, it didn't appear, at least on these monitors, that one could clearly see through the vehicle from front and rear. Did you see that observation where you couldn't see individuals passing through the front of the vehicle from the rear?
Correct, sir.
Would that have to do with the tent on the windows possibly?
Yes, sir.
There are some words that are used by you.
Yes, sir.
My grandmother would call it a little salty language. Is that safe to say?
Yes, sir.
Is it a common practice, though, for law enforcement in a situation where they're trying to get somebody's attention that they may use salty language to?
Yes, sir.
So would it surprise you that on the initial attempt to stop and question the driver of this vehicle, that Officer Gross may have used some salty language as well?
It does not surprise me, sir.
How long have you been a police officer?
Approximately 20 years.
That's not a new occurrence, is it?
No, sir.
As part of, in your 20 years, you've seen that for use of force, the use of force continuum change from a continuum where you had to go to different steps to a wheel that you could choose from at any one time. Have you not?
Yes, sir.
Under the old continuum, the mere presence of an officer in uniform, dressed as you are today, is one of the bottom rung of the use of force continuum, is it not?
Yes, sir.
Is the next rung voice?
Yes, sir.
In your training experience, do you often use devices in your hand, such as a flashlight, with your voice to try to get an individual or individuals' attention?
Yes, sir.
You don't see anything wrong with that as a police officer, do you?
No, sir.
Thank you. Pass the witness.
Nothing further, Judge.
May this witness be highly accused.
On the stage, yes, sir.
Subject to recall, Judge, based on some of the stuff outside the presence.
So you may stand down right now. It's possible you might be recalled as a witness. So please don't discuss your testimony with anybody else and make sure they know how to get a hold of you.
Yes, sir.
Judge, we have a somewhat lengthy witness now.
Okay, ready?
Yes, sir.
Members of the jury, if you will please go to the chair. All rise for the jury.